Maximum Carnage was a favourite of many people in the early 90s. From the gritty style of graphics to the crunchy green jelly soundtrack to the satisfying beat-em-up gameplay, Spider-Man and Venom had never had a better time on consoles. It wasn't perfect, but it was good. Damn good. So, how do you follow up a cult classic game? By stripping away much of the things that were memorable about the game, dulling down the presentation, and upping the amount of symbiotes. In other words, you crank out a dud called Separation Anxiety. Confusingly, the storyline is a rough adaptation of Venom Lethal Protector, with very little taken from the actual Venom Separation Anxiety storyline. Spider-Man and Venom team up to save the innocent hordes from a variety of home-brand symbiote offshoots. Unfortunately, this is where one of the major aesthetic changes from Maximum Carnage immediately comes into play. In that game, the story was told through comic book panels that gave the story a good kick and kept the game flowing. In this game, the story is told through static screens full of text. Because of course, a wall of text is the best way to tell an energetic superhero story. The boring presentation extends to the rest of the game. The first game had smoothly animated sprites that accurately represented the look of the comics at the time. In comparison, Separation Anxiety looks washed out and strange. The graphics look like they've been run through a Photoshop filter to weed out all of the grittiness that made Maximum Carnage so appealing. Instead, we're left with plasticky sprites that animate awkwardly and walk around strangely clean-looking environments. The music has undergone a similar sort of transformation. In Maximum Carnage, the soundtrack provided a uniquely grimy sound that perfectly suited the game's street-level aesthetic. In Separation Anxiety, this is replaced by a sample-heavy soundtrack that is forgettable at best and awful at worst. The Mega Drive version suffers the most, with several tracks sounding like they're barely working with the system's sound chip. The worst part is there just isn't much character to the game. The bad guys all look very similar, the stages are almost entirely forgettable, and even the boss characters are not memorable at all. Other Marvel characters appear in the game as team-ups, but even they can't save this game. Look what they did to Ghost Rider! Someone should get the penance stare for that one. To be fair, there were a few improvements made. Maximum Carnage had always been a bit frustrating due to the combination of high difficulty and limited continues. Separation Anxiety features passwords, which mitigates this. The biggest improvement is definitely the addition of the 2-player mode, which was sorely lacking in the first title. So now, two of you can console each other as you slog through this subpar game. Gameplay-wise, this is a serviceable beat-em-up. The frustration comes from the fact that it could and should have been much more than that. They had a great framework to start with from Maximum Carnage. They had a killer license to work with in Spider-Man and the wider Marvel franchise, and they had the experience with the technology given that the game came out near the end of the 16-bit generation. This game had the potential to be an unforgettable classic. Instead, it's just another average game that had its chance to be great and completely blew it. Spider-Man deserved better, but I guess that's just the Parker luck.